morning, Grade 5s. Hopefully you're doing very well. Welcome to day 3 of your workshops for ELA. So on Sunday, you did a workshop on setting. So you worked on potential settings for your story with Miss Rachel, and then hopefully you got a chance to brainstorm and fill that out on your own for the 5 different senses. Then yesterday, you did another workshop on characters, and again, hopefully you had a chance to brainstorm at least 4, maybe 3 different main characters for your adventure story. Today we're going to be moving on to the third element of our story writing, which is the problem. So let's just get our I can statement down first. And you know what? I'm going to write it down here because I have more space. So I can, oops, let me make this a little smaller. Yes, okay. Let's do that. So I'll write I can, and let's say, I always do my 3 dots. I can brainstorm. And sorry, it's a little messy, but my pen is a little wonky. Brainstorm possible problems problems for my story. Okay? Now, when we talk about a problem in the story, right, it has to be the most exciting part. It's one of the most exciting parts of the story. Now, obviously, setting is important, character is important, the solution is important, but the problem is what creates the anxiousness, the more excitement for a reader to continue reading. So the job of a writer is to make sure that the problem and then what is the climax is really exciting. So today, and it says problem, let's read. We're reading over here. Today, you will think about the setting of your story and what kind of problems could happen in that setting. So please make sure you have finished the setting. So I'm going to highlight this. I want you to, so what kind of problems could happen in that setting? So on Sunday, please make sure you have finished the setting workshop because your problem needs to be related to the setting that you've decided for your story. So if you were, so in Miss Rachel's example, the setting was space. If our problem, it has nothing to do in space, and I'm talking about the beach, then we know there's a disconnect. So make sure you're building on, right? So I'm going to continue Miss Rachel's examples that she's done for character and setting. So my problems are going to be related to the setting that she chose and you chose together, right? Which was space. Now, the problem is the basis of an adventure, and I do want you to, I know it's bolded, but I do want you to highlight that's the basis of an adventure. This is the heart and core of an adventure story, right? If you don't have that excitement in this part, which is the problem, the reader isn't going to be engaged. The reader isn't going to want to continue reading. So make sure that this is the heart and soul. So make sure that you put a lot of thought and effort into this section. It is a situation or problem that could realistically happen and would create a challenge for the characters in the story. So again, so it could realistically happen. And now that's, we will be a little bit lenient on that because you can use your imagination. Now it shouldn't be completely unheard of. If I'm talking about something that's about in space, I should be using my knowledge on what I do know about space that can happen. The shuttles go, walking on different planets and that stuff. So that's realistic, right? And then creates a challenge. This is where you're looking at the different characteristics and the different details that you had in your character details yesterday. And then that should come up in these problems. So I want you to think about your setting of your story. So right now, and I'm going to write space because that is I'm going to continue, right? So then you see how we're building on. I'm going to build on Miss Rachel's space setting. What problems could happen in that setting? And I said, make a list of the problems. Try to think of at least 5 or 6. Now, because this is this brainstorming element, it's a workshop planning part of our writing, you may not use all 5 or 6 problems. The point of this stage is just to get all the possible problems you can think of. You may use them all, you may not use them all, and that is okay. But I really do want you to think of 5. You're probably thinking, Miss Mavish, if I only need 2 major problems, why do I need to think of 6? Because the more, the better. The more you're trying to brainstorm, the more creative ideas you can think of, the more invested you become in the story. Okay, so think of all the different problems that could happen in your story. So I'm going to use the space one. So I'm going to try to think of some problems that could happen in space. Now, so again, on Sunday, we went through the setting which was space, and then Miss Rachel yesterday went through some characters. So and I remember when she was doing her senses, when she was doing her setting, she talked about one of the senses that she would, so one of the things that she would smell, and she said burning, and I remember that, and I said, okay, and I'm going to hold on to that because that could be a possible problem. So that was something she smelled, right? Possibly smelled some burning. So that could be one of the problems, right? That maybe while the space shuttle is in space, one of the arms starts burning and the shuttle could possibly burn, right? So that could be one problem, and they have to somehow solve that because their lives are at risk. So what do they end up doing, right? So that's a problem. So I'll just say burning. Again, I'm doing point form, really point form, but just you make sure. Oops, got my N. Burning. I'll say burning space shuttle. Oops. There we go. Burning space shuttle, because that could be a wonderful example of how they have to determine how they're going to save their lives, how are they going to recover from this. So maybe one of the arms of the space shuttle is burning. So that's one idea. What is another problem that could happen? So again, I'm thinking, okay, they're out in space. Maybe they get lost, right? Maybe their navigation, I don't know, burns out or something happens and they get lost in space and they don't know how to get back. Again, there's a lot of situation scenarios that you can create from that, right? How are they going to get it back up running? Are they all trying to help them? Are they trying to, maybe someone is trying to sabotage them. So maybe that's another problem. So maybe they get lost, and again, get lost. How can I make it even shorter? Get lost in space. Again, when you're doing your brainstorm, you can do a little bit more detail, like a few points. I'm just keeping it very brief. What's another problem? So one could be when the space shuttle is burning. Another one could be they get lost in space. Now, I know, again, you also mentioned that they're in space. They may come about other planets. So they might land on another planet, and they might maybe they find some undiscovered species on this planet, and they're trying to kill us humans, So, and that again is creating excitement. So maybe they land on this new planet, and the species is trying to kill them. This new species that they've discovered. Maybe they're aliens, maybe they're humans, who knows, right? So I can say landed, or I can say land on new planet, comma, I can say trying to kill humans. Trying to kill the characters, which would be the humans. So whoever these inhabitants are, they are trying to kill us. And I'm going to just, okay, I want to just put point forms instead of these numbers. Give me a moment. I just make this big. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3. And I'll put my 4th one here. Okay, let's make this tiny again. Here's like 5 or something. Okay, what's another problem that we could have? So far I've got burning. The space shuttle is burning down. Maybe they get lost in space and don't know how to get back home. 3 could be that they land on a new planet and then the species they discover are trying to kill the characters. Another one could be, okay, what could happen on the space? So a lot of these are outside. What could happen in the space shuttle? Maybe, and again, Miss Rachel had mentioned this in her setting workshop. They're talking about, she had mentioned the shampoos and things that they have. It's very interesting how they have to wash their hair and whatnot. And maybe there's a thief on board. Maybe all their supplies are disappearing. Maybe their food, because you have to remember that astronauts have to take very limited. They can't just take all the food they want. So it's very specific, very particular amount of food and supplies they take. And maybe there's a thief on board and someone is stealing all the supplies and they have to, it's like a mystery, right? Your adventure kind of becomes a mystery of trying to figure out who is stealing all the supplies, right? Okay, so we can say that. Stealing supplies. Stealing supplies, and they have to find out who the thief is. And then what's one more? Because I did say at least 5. What's one more that we could do? So, let's see. How about they make some sort of a discovery, right? And ideally, when astronauts and space shuttles are sent up, we are hoping that there's some sort of discovery. So maybe they do make a discovery, or they're trying to make a discovery. And so either maybe they're trying to make a discovery or they do come upon something, maybe a cure for something, and unfortunately someone is trying to hide the discovery. So maybe one of the character discovers a planet or discovers a cure or discovers a new planet or something, and the other astronaut is adamant that they don't want, they don't want to take the news back. So they're trying to hide this information. So maybe that's what it is. So they make, we can say, make new discovery and how can I do? Someone makes this discovery, try to hide it. So maybe they're trying to make a discovery, but unfortunately one of the members on board is trying to hide it from them, right? Now, these are basically, I got 5 solid problems. I obviously will not be talking about each one of these problems. I may though, right, when I'm actually going to start my planning, my actual rough copy, I may want to take 2 of them and try to mix them and kind of blend them into one big problem or 2 mini problems. That's okay. Do we want you to have 5 major problems in the story? Definitely not. That would be way too long. That would be too much work, right? So in this example, so my example, I might want to, so maybe I can mix, what would be 2 that I can mix? Maybe while they're trying to, they get lost in space, right? That was one of the first problems. So maybe that's my, and let me get a different color. Let's get, okay. So maybe the first problem was that they get lost in space, right? They're off an adventure, their navigational systems go down and they get lost in space. And while they're lost, so that's one big problem. And while they're lost, they end up landing on a new planet. And then unfortunately, there's a species there, they're trying to kill them. So I can put 2 of these problems into my story. Will I put there's a space shuttle, but the space shuttle is burning and someone is stealing and there's a new discovery? No, definitely not. That's too much. That becomes too dense of a story. We don't want that. So ideally, I want you to do this today. So after you've watched this video, I want you to go back. I want you to think of what is it that my set, so what was my setting? Who are my characters, and what are some 5 or 6 different problems I can think of? I do want you to think of 5 or 6. Now, will you use all 5 or 6? No. You may end up using one solid one. Maybe you think of 2 really good ones you want to use, but I still want you to brainstorm as many as you can, just like I did. Okay? So good luck. Get creative, right? Think of things that are related to your setting and your characters. It would create a challenge for the characters so they have to somehow solve and get through the story. And that's something that's realistically happened. Okay? So the rest of today, all you're going to do now is get your planning sheet out and start brainstorming your problems. And like always, if you have any problems, just message myself, Miss Rachel, or Mr. Matt. Okay? Have fun and enjoy. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.